Truth in Photography, presented by Laura Cantrell. It's difficult to go anywhere these days without noticing the greater amount of people using devices to take and share photographs. As a teacher, I can tell you that one question that has become more popular in classroom settings is, can I take a picture of this? People share photos of loved ones, special events, and even the meals they ate, a photographic luxury that did not exist until recent technological developments, such as digital cameras and especially the smartphone. Snapchat and Instagram were among the top 3 messaging apps that showed the most growth in 2014. An average of 60 million photos are shared per day on Instagram alone. What do these statistics say about our current society? It perhaps says that words are not enough, but we have placed greater value on the photographic experience. One might assume this is because viewers take comfort in some sort of truth that can be told with the camera. With photographic assistance, we can see the past, both far and recent. We can see things as they were, with impeccable realism, color and light issues aside. Similar to a microscope or telescope, the camera is like a visual aid that can allow us to see things and find out about the world. True, photographs can be staged and the scenes fabricated, but even while a photographer may invent a story, the props and models can be seen as having actually existed, like this photograph of Bigfoot. Many cryptozoological creatures, like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, have been captured on unaltered film, though most of the time the figures in the photos are found to be props or people in costume. Though the images are deceiving to our senses, the camera knows no difference between real identities and actors. It can just honestly say that figures that appeared this way once existed in front of my lens. Photography is like literature. There is fiction and nonfiction, but contrary to literature, it is produced mechanically. Where a writer creates pictures with words inspired by his or her own mind, and a painter uses the hand and heart to create a picture, a photograph is the product of a mechanical process, be it light, chemical, or digital. John Andrew Fisher illustrated this difference as such. If a painter who is trying to depict the scene in front of her believes that there is a gorilla in the scene, she will put it in the painting, even if it is not actually there. Whereas, even if a photographer also has that belief, a gorilla will not appear in the image if one does not exist in front of the camera. The pictures created by a camera, as Kendall L. Walton illustrates, are transparent. They allow us to see the subjects that actually existed before the camera. Those subjects may be our loved ones, famous architecture, or cardboard fairies like the one seen in this famous stage portrait. Our minds decide from this point on whether to trust these images or not, just like listening to a story. Regardless of our trust in the stories that they tell, those subjects tell one truth, that they existed in front of a camera at one point. I would argue that there are multiple categories of photography, and the truthfulness of a photograph changes depending on in which category the photograph belongs, either original, edited, or manipulated. The first and most transparent is raw original photographs. In this type of photograph, the photographer simply triggers the shutter to capture the image. This is not to say that the photograph is staged or not, like the famous Civil War photograph by Matthew Brady, but simply that once the subjects are arranged in front of the camera, the photo is captured and unaltered. Regardless of filters that alter lighting and color, the subjects themselves can still be supposed to have existed in front of the camera. One of my favorite photographs, for instance, is this Polaroid photograph of my late grandmother. Though many professionals in the photography industry might criticize the lighting, composition, or quality of this photo, it is nonetheless an honest photograph of my grandmother. I can trust that my grandmother was in front of the machine that took this image, and when I look at the photograph, I see her. Because I know my father in our own backyard took this photograph, I can personally attest to its validity as a work of nonfiction. However, one with less knowledge could have a different experience. A stranger might question if the subject of the photo was a live person or a realistic wax figure, but nonetheless trust that the object that projected this image was indeed before the camera that snapped the photo. The second category to consider is edited photography. The truth in the subject being photographed may be no less truthful if the photograph has only been edited. Editing, which means altering filters, enhancing contrasts and colors, cropping and resizing, only enhances the drama and overall appearance of the subjects that appeared before the camera. In the world of photojournalism, editing is actually a questionable and controversial issue. There was a debate in 2012 once the World Press Photo of the Year was announced regarding the acceptable level of finishing for a photo to undergo and still qualify for the prestigious award. The photographer Paul Hansen did not deny using photo finishing techniques to alter the color and lighting, but the figures themselves remained unaltered. Regardless of how we perceive the light and color, these people truly existed before Hansen's camera. The third category is manipulated photographs. This is where photography becomes less truthful in understanding the figures as they actually were in front of the camera. A photograph that has been manipulated may be a composite of two or more photographs, and it may have been altered in such a way that objects are omitted or added. In a manipulated photograph, the original subjects may still be intact, but the background may have been substituted. The photographer involved with photo manipulation is no different than a painter. He or she may choose to add components that never existed, like the gorilla in the painting mentioned earlier. This is not a recent phenomenon by any means. Some of the images that we have trusted to be true reflections of famous historical figures are actually composite photos, such as this image of Abraham Lincoln. After Lincoln was assassinated, the media wanted to publish a heroic-looking Lincoln, and since no such picture existed, one was created by putting a portrait of Lincoln on the body of the South Carolina politician John Calhoun. In most cases, a viewer has no means of telling if a photograph has been altered or not. When it comes to personal photographs, though, we have reason to find truth in those images. However, when looking at the work of other photographers or simply browsing images on the internet, the level of truth that one can find is no guarantee. Trusted testimonies in film may help to warrant our level of trust that the subjects actually appeared before a camera in the way that we see them, but it is nearly impossible to be sure in many cases. I rarely think that my closest friends on Facebook are intentionally deceiving me with the photos they post on their timelines, but I would be quite skeptical of the pictures posted by those in the margin.